Adidas created one of the most popular shoes of the past few years. Today, we're going to figure out whether the second version really lives up to the hype or becomes a complete disappointment. Here we have them, one of the most anticipated sneakers of the entire year, and they come in a pretty cool box. Of course, these wouldn't be Anthony Edwards' signature sneaker without his logo all over it. So you got it down here and then a little Adidas Anthony Edwards combo on the top. Believe that. But let me pop the top and show you guys these bad boys. This is the Adidas AE2. Also included in the box is an extra set of laces. These are pink, so I probably won't throw them in there. But here we have them, the second signature sneaker from Anthony Edwards and Adidas in this extremely bright colorway called With Love. This colorway actually honors Anthony Edwards' late mother and grandmother. Now, before we even get into everything about this pair of shoes, I do think it's important to kind of address all of the swirling opinions that have been going around online about this sneaker. Because of the insane popularity of the Adidas AE1, so many, pretty much everyone, has an opinion on these. I mean, we've been seeing early leaks and images of this pair of shoes for about a year now. I think Adidas even leaked them. And I think because a lot of those leaks, a lot of people immediately made some judgments, basically assuming that these were going to be a disappointment. A lot of people have been talking about the insane competition in the basketball sneaker space at the moment, like some of the big hitters, like the Shy 001s with Converse and Nike with the Ja 3 and others. I think a lot of those people will change their mind, change their tune once they get these things on foot and in hand. Either way, let's get into some of the release details if you're after this pair of shoes. So the launch is going to be this colorway called With Love, like we went over, and it's going to be dropping on October the 4th. Now, if you're not a fan of how bright these things are, I can understand. There's plenty more in the pipeline, including a second colorway shortly after the release of these on October the 25th called Blue Fusion. The retail is $130, a slight bump from the original, which was, I think, the mids $120 and the lows $110. Affordability was a huge factor of why the AE1s were so incredibly popular, so I'm very glad to see that they didn't go crazy with the price increase here. The AE1 also played a big role in, I guess, the huge resurgence of basketball sneakers that we're seeing today. The newer designs for a lot of these basketball sneakers have been so good that people have been wearing them off court and not just exclusively for basketball. And that's actually forced brands to take that into consideration when it comes to the design. The AE1 was kind of known for its insane comfort and versatility, and then just overall good looks. Now, the AE2, on the other hand, does get some upgrades in multiple different areas. But at the same time, you can definitely tell they went in on this pair of shoes with the mentality of if it ain't broke. Like, it's definitely not a completely different shoe. In fact, I would say that they are more similar than they are different, which honestly, I think a lot of people are going to be happy about. I didn't really see anybody saying that they had a massive issue or any problems with the AE1, so it's not like this had to correct some big mistake. It kind of feels a little bit more like a new iPhone release than a actual brand new product. So one of the first things that they changed is the cut. As you know, the AE1 came in two different cuts, a high or mid top and then also a low top. The AE2 finds kind of a midpoint. As you can see side by side with the AE1, it's very, very similar. It's a little bit taller than the lows, but a little bit shorter than the originals. I guess there is the potential that they do release a low version of this. However, I mean, I don't know how they would do that. Getting more low than this would be maybe a little bit strange. You might have to actually rework the design for that. The general design is very, very similar with the exact same V-shaped opening extending all the way down to the bottom. The AE2 does have a slightly cleaner design with the laces being kind of hidden on the inside, whereas like on the originals, it just kind of is on the exterior. They swapped out the entire side of the shoe from being a rubber cage to now having this padded fabric. I think that's definitely one of the biggest changes visually. Now, of course, to make sure that these things still have a lot of lateral support and lockdown, they added these things on the front, which still is that exact same material, kind of a rubber that extends from the toe all the way to kind of the middle forefoot of the shoe. And then you've also got a very similar design around the back. Now, this heel clip also has carbon fiber worked in there, just like the originals. And both of these combined definitely provide a decent amount of lockdown once you're in them. You still have the reflective toe box area, which is really cool because it's so unnoticeable when you're in broad daylight, but as soon as you turn the flash on, it lights up. Now, I had to do a lot of digging to really figure out what cushioning they used in here, because unlike the originals, they don't label it anywhere on the sneaker itself. But I can confirm they're using the exact same cushioning that they did in the originals, a little combination of light strike and light boost. Now, they also say in some of the tech specs that there's a 20% weight reduction in compared to the AE1. However, when I weighed these side by side with the exact same size of the AE1 low, it was a little bit heavier. So I assume they're doing that comparison with the originals, the mid tops. So that kind of makes sense. These are probably a lot closer to the lows than they are the mids. Now, inside the pair of shoes, they've done a decent amount of reworking. The first thing you'll notice is the ankle area, which now has a really soft padding in there. They've re-engineered it in a way that's not only super comfortable, but also adds extra lockdown. They've also reworked the outsole traction pattern, so it still comes in the traditional herringbone style. However, that traction also extends a little bit more onto the actual midsole rather than just being on the bottom. And because this outsole is kind of semi-translucent, you can actually see the propulsion plate that they've added into it. Now, they also added this into both of the originals. It just adds a little bit extra, you guessed it, propulsion, but also adds torsional rigidity. Now, one thing I do really like underneath here is this little design detail where if you turn it upside down, you can kind of see that that makes the A for Anthony Edwards. So how do these feel on foot? How do they compare in terms of comfort and casual wear and styling and all of that goodness? Well, first off, the fit is true to size, just like the originals. I always went true to size. Obviously, it is a basketball sneaker, so they are going to feel tight. That's what you want when you're actually on court. So I do think that if you're not going to play ball in these and you're going to wear them casually, I would probably go a half size up. Now, wearing these two side by side, the feeling is very similar. However, the AE2 definitely does have some improvement in terms of strict comfort. Now, that comfort isn't necessarily coming from the cushioning. As we've established, it's pretty much the same, so you're not getting any additional squish or anything like that. But because of that reworked interior, especially around the ankle area, it just feels a little bit better. I mean, the AE1s were already super comfortable, so it's not like I had any complaints. But again, I think they just did a great job at just slightly elevating these. Now, one thing that I thought was pretty interesting with the AE2 was how, like, Anthony Edwards was talking a lot in an interview about how they considered the casual wearer when designing these. And I must say, I was a little bit skeptical coming into this pair of shoes. I thought, you know, maybe they're just going to go all into just strictly an encore pair of shoes, and having these in casual outfits is going to look a little bit strange. But honestly, I love the way that these things look. The more different styles and different pants that I put on, just the more I liked them. In fact, I feel like through all of my testing, I've actually started to like this colorway, which, you know, typically I'm not a pink and peach colored shoe guy. The side profile and the top-down view, especially when you're looking at them like this, is just so cool. So overall, yes, I think for casual wear, for performance, for everything, this is a improvement on the first one. It may not be a generational leap, it may not be a complete change, it's just little marginal changes that just make it slightly better, a little bit more compelling, and a nice refresh to an already great model. But hey, I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comment section. What do you think of the AE2? Or hey, do you just prefer the AE1s? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. But hey, like always, I'm going to throw a video up in the top left-hand corner. Click on it to check it out.